Karen destroyed my autistic son's therapy chair. My wife rebuilt it on national TV. We moved to Rose Grove to heal, not just because it was quieter, not just because the houses were spaced farther apart, but because my son, Max, needed peace. At 7 years old, Max had already endured more sensory overload than most people face in a lifetime. Lights too bright, sounds too sharp, smells too sudden, it could all send him spiraling. The therapy chair we brought with us wasn't just a seat, it was sanctuary, weighted, custom molded, built over time by my wife, Dr. Elena Marcus, a pediatric neurologist who has worked with hundreds of children like Max and who just happens to be his mother. At first, Rose Grove seemed perfect. Clean streets, tree-lined sidewalks, friendly smiles and weekend barbecues. But that changed the moment we met Patricia, or as everyone called her, Karen. She introduced herself as the community compliance officer. But here's the catch: we weren't part of any formal HOA. I checked before buying. What Karen was running was a fake HOA, self-declared with no legal backing. Just a logo she had printed on glossy flyers and stuck on everyone's mailboxes. "I like things orderly," she said, eyeing Max's bright blue therapy chair as we set it up under the porch. "That's an eyesore in our neighborhood." I didn't reply. Elena squeezed my hand and whispered, "Let it go." She's just loud. But Karen wasn't just loud. She was dangerous in the way only people convinced of their own righteousness can be. That night, we found a notice duct taped to our front door. All non-standard outdoor equipment must be removed immediately. Property violation, Muryon 17. Rose Grove Neighborhood Wellness Committee. The paper had no legal header, no county seal. It was just intimidation. We ignored it, and for 2 weeks, Max was happy. He had his morning rituals, his sunlight therapy, his quiet time with his chair. Elena came home during breaks to help guide his progress. We had routines. And for a family like ours, routines are everything. Until the day it broke. It was a Saturday morning. I'd stepped inside for coffee. Max was outside, seated in his therapy chair, gently rocking. Karen approached with 2 other women from her committee. They whispered, glanced around, and then I heard it. Snap, crack, scream. I dropped my mug, rushed outside. Max was on the ground, crying, his chair twisted and splintered beside him. Karen stood over it, breathless, holding a metal gardening tool. She'd smashed it repeatedly. The foam was ripped, the internal sensory mechanisms dangling like torn veins. One of the other women gasped and ran. The third started filming. He was disturbing the peace. Karen barked, as if that excused anything. "That humming he does, it's not normal. We don't want that kind of thing on display." I didn't punch her. I don't know how I didn't. But Elena did worse. She came barreling out, still in her white coat. She didn't yell at first. She simply knelt beside Max, cradled his head, whispered his name. When he stopped shaking, she turned and stood, her voice low and cold, cut like a scalpel. "You destroyed medically prescribed equipment for a disabled child. That's assault under both state and federal law, and you did it in front of witnesses." Karen blinked. "Don't be dramatic. You're just his mother." Elena took a slow step forward. "No. I'm Dr. Marcus. I work with Johns Hopkins. I designed that therapy chair, and now I'm pressing charges." Karen didn't expect the police to come, not when she laughed in our faces, not when she waved her garden spade like a badge, not even when Elena pulled out her phone and showed the officers arriving that exact moment the video footage from our security camera clear as day. The clip was short but brutal. Karen stomping onto our porch, Max in his chair, gently humming with his headphones on. Then the sound of metal on plastic. Again. Until the chair collapsed and Max hit the ground, screaming. Officer Daniels, a tall man with a veteran's composure, reviewed the footage twice. His face changed as he watched it. When he turned to Karen, his voice was clipped, professional but hard. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with us." Karen's voice was shrill. This is harassment. I am the HOA. No, and ma'am, he replied flatly. You're not. This is a non-governed zone. There is no HOA. She was still yelling as they guided her into the cruiser. My lawyer will make your badge rattle. I'm keeping this neighborhood clean. Max was curled in my arms by then, trembling. The chair was beyond repair. Elena had confirmed it. She'd built it with custom parts, thousands of hours of design and testing over 2 years. It couldn't just be bought off Amazon. It wasn't just a chair, it was trust, security, grounding, gone, shattered by ignorance wearing a smug smile. Elena stayed with Max that night, refusing to leave his side. She barely slept, her mind already moving into battle mode. I knew that look. She wasn't just a mother. She was a fighter, one who knew the system and how to bend it to defend kids like Max. The next day, I posted the security footage online with a simple caption. This woman destroyed my autistic son's therapy chair because she didn't like how it looked. My wife is a pediatric neurologist who built that chair herself. The police have the footage, so do you. I didn't expect the storm that followed. By morning, it had over 2.3 million views. By nightfall, the Justice for Max was trending on every platform. People were furious. And not just parents, teachers, advocates, disability rights groups, veterans, even celebrities. A former NFL linebacker who had an autistic nephew messaged me directly. Let us know how we can help. This is disgusting. Karen's name spread fast, especially once others in the neighborhood began speaking out. Turns out, we weren't her first target. There was the single mom whose wind chime violated sound decorum, the wheelchair user whose portable ramp she tried to have removed, even a biracial couple who claimed she accused them of lowering property values. She wasn't enforcing rules, she was enforcing prejudice. What we hadn't known was that Karen had printed fake violation notices using a logo she designed herself, made them look official. The county clerk's office confirmed she had no authority, no legal recognition. It was a con, a delusion, backed by threats. And for years, nobody pushed back, until now. I sat across the kitchen table from Elena the next evening as she prepared documents, medical affidavits, design specs of the chair, state legal codes. I asked if she was filing a civil suit. No, she said without looking up. I'm filing 3, one for destruction of medical property, one under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and one for trauma inflicted on a minor. Then she glanced up. And I've already contacted Channel 9. We go live Monday. Elena rarely spoke like this, sharp, cold, decisive. But something about this had activated her. She'd worked with thousands of families over the years. Some of her kids couldn't speak. Some couldn't walk. But all of them had something worth defending. This attack on Max wasn't just personal, it was symbolic. It was what too many parents had gone through in silence. By the time Monday came, Karen was out on bail and her house was swarmed with media vans. Her front yard, once meticulously trimmed and patrolled, was now a sea of cameras, mics, and shouting questions. A few of her committee members tried to defend her. One even claimed the chair was a safety hazard for the neighborhood. But when the State Disability Rights Commission released a public statement condemning the act, the tide turned hard and fast. We appeared on Channel 9 that night. Elena sat beside me in her white coat. Max was off-screen, coloring with his occupational therapist. I built that chair over 18 months, Elena said, looking directly into the camera. It was part of a custom program, designed to reduce sensory overload. It gave my son back parts of his life, and it was destroyed not by accident, but with intent. The anchor leaned forward. And what would you say to people who think this was just a misunderstanding? Elena's voice didn't shake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was ableism, wrapped in fake authority. And the system let her do it until now. The anchor blinked. The audience was silent. That same night, Karen's employers, she worked part-time at a local real estate office, fired her publicly, and her fake HOA wellness committee dismantled. Turns out she was collecting unauthorized dues from new homeowners, pretending they were mandatory. With the footage and testimony, the DA launched a fraud investigation. I received a quiet email from a neighbor, an older man named Bill. It simply said, "We've waited years for someone to stand up. Thank you. You're not alone." The first hint of something deeper came from a woman named Lydia. She rang our doorbell 2 days after the Channel 9 interview aired. Mid-40s, tightly wound, hands shaking even as she held her purse to her chest like a shield. "I'm sorry to bother you," she whispered, "but I think Karen ruined my son too. Not like that, Cher, but almost worse." Elena invited her in. Lydia's son, Trevor, was 12, diagnosed with Tourette's and ADHD. A year ago, he started using a mini mobility scooter for neighborhood walks, helped with balance and fatigue. Karen flagged him for reckless endangerment of pedestrians. Within a week, Trevor's scooter was gone stolen. A week after that, he stopped leaving the house. She said she'd fine me into submission if I let him out unsupervised again. Lydia said we weren't welcome if we couldn't follow her rules. I felt my stomach twist. She was using the same homemade violation slips she'd posted on our door. But Lydia wasn't the last. Once we went public, emails poured in stories from other families across Rose Grove and neighboring communities. Some described similar committees patrolling blocks. Others had official-looking notices demanding they pay compliance fees or face community expulsion. One woman, a veteran, said her husband's PTSD service flag was torn down and labeled a visual aggression. It didn't make sense. One Karen couldn't be everywhere, unless Elena did what she does best: research. She poured through public tax filings, real estate purchase records, and obscure neighborhood bylaws. What she uncovered wasn't just one fake HOA, it was a network of them, 12 in total, across 4 counties, all tied to a single shell corporation, Civic Residential Preservation Group, LLC. On paper, it looked like a consulting firm offering neighborhood beautification services. But dig a little deeper, and the truth was darker. They preyed on newly built, loosely regulated suburban zones, places without formal HOAs or oversight. They'd send in officers like Karen, create fake rules, enforce them through intimidation, and start collecting illegal dues. They weren't just power tripping, they were monetizing control. And Karen, she wasn't just a petty tyrant with a garden spade, she was the Rose Grove coordinator. That night, Elena laid it all out in our garage, covering a whiteboard like a crime drama detective. "They're laundering HOA fees into personal accounts," she said, pointing at a red string between LLC bank records and Karen's Venmo account. "They even paid for Karen's patio remodel from those fake dues." I was stunned. "You're saying she's been doing this for years?" This wasn't about Max. This was about power. He just got in the way. We realized if we stayed silent, others would fall victim. And Max deserved more than just private justice. So did Trevor, and all the other families who'd lived in fear. We contacted the local DA, sent everything: names, receipts, fake notices, a map of the network. Within 48 hours, we were sitting in a conference room with Assistant Attorney General Susan Wade. "I've never seen anything like this," she said after scanning the files. "It's civil harassment, fraud, impersonation of governance, and potentially racketeering." "Can you stop it?" Elena asked. "We can," Wade said. "But I'll need you to go public again. We need a bigger voice, a bigger wave." So we went back to Channel 9. But this time, national networks picked it up: CNN, MSNBC, even Good Morning America. We weren't just the family whose therapy chair was destroyed. We were now the whistleblowers uncovering a regional HOA scam targeting vulnerable families. Karen's mugshot hit primetime. The Rose Grove committee dissolved overnight. Some of her allies panicked and began turning on each other. One even leaked an internal group chat from their Facebook admin council. It was full of horrifying comments: autistic kids should be inside, not distracting the block. Make their lives hard enough and they'll move. We'll bring order to these freak zones. Screenshots like that spread like wildfire. and the backlash fierce. Sponsors dropped connections to any affiliated realtors. 3 real estate companies launched internal investigations. Schools issued statements supporting neurodiverse children. Hundreds marched outside Rose Grove with signs that read, "Our kids deserve better. No more fake authority. We are not freak zones." Max stayed home during it all, still shaky, but he smiled more, especially when Elena got a call from the Therapeutic Devices Initiative of Johns Hopkins. They offered to rebuild Max's chair with upgrades and nationwide visibility for awareness. We weren't alone anymore. But Karen wasn't done. Not yet. Released on bail again. She filed a countersuit claiming we had slandered her, that we had manipulated public sympathy. Her lawyer called the destroyed therapy chair just a recliner for fidgety kids. That's when Elena did something that made me realize just how far she was willing to go. She contacted every family that had come forward, invited them to our home, and recorded a group statement, 23 parents, side by side, some with tears, some with fury, all with stories. She ended it by saying, "This isn't about chairs. It's about dignity. This is a fight for every family told to stay quiet. We are not leaving." We uploaded the video. In one day, it had 10 million views. Karen should have stayed silent. Instead, she doubled down. 2 weeks after we exposed the Civic Residential Preservation Group and its network of fraudulent HOAs, Karen's legal team served us with an official countersuit. The claim defamation, public endangerment, and intentional emotional distress. Elena read it quietly at the kitchen table, her face blank. Max was in the next room, coloring dinosaurs, humming softly. I waited for Elena to scream or cry, but she didn't. She laughed. "This," she said, tapping the envelope, "is the move of a desperate woman backed into a corner." Karen had hired a firm known for defending shady corporations, not individuals. The lead attorney, Michael Trammell, spoke to the press like he was auditioning for a reality show. "My client has been the victim of a targeted online harassment campaign," he announced. "The chair incident was misunderstood. Dr. Marcus is weaponizing her profession to rally outrage." What Trammell didn't realize was that Elena had anticipated this play. She'd already collected notarized statements from over 20 families, gathered direct evidence of fake fees, forged violation slips, and even a recorded voicemail from Karen to one of her committee members. "We're going to make it so uncomfortable for these families that they'll just leave. It's cleaner that way." That voicemail. It aired 2 nights later on a 60 Minutes. Public outrage became an inferno. And yet, the legal counterattack was real. Elena was subpoenaed, our personal texts, medical notes redacted. Thankfully, even old therapy blog posts were combed through by Karen's legal team trying to find inconsistencies. Max regressed. The anxiety came back. He couldn't sleep. The sight of cameras made him flinch. His therapist said we needed to pull back, so we did just a little. We stopped interviews. We focused on Max. We refocused on us. But the community stepped in. Lydia launched a public fundraiser to help us with legal costs. In 3 days, it reached $128,000. Comments poured in from people we'd never met. "Your family gave us courage. My daughter uses the same kind of chair. Thank you for standing up. Let us carry you now." People marched again, this time not in protest, but in solidarity. They held signs that read, "We believe Elena. Therapy is not a crime. Stop fake HOA abuse." A local artist even painted a mural downtown, Max sitting in a shining therapy chair, surrounded by a protective circle of community members. Elena wept the first time she saw it, but the real twist came from an unexpected source. One of Karen's own allies flipped. Her name was Cynthia Marsh, a retired librarian who once acted as Karen's compliance secretary. She'd been silent since the arrest began, but quietly contacted Elena through her hospital email. "I'm done lying. I have something you need." We met Cynthia at a nearby coffee shop. She came armed with a brown envelope and tired eyes. Inside were audio recordings, dozens of them. Karen had recorded their committee meetings, thinking they'd be evidence of professionalism. Instead, they were an avalanche of hatred. In one clip, Karen says if we make life difficult for the special needs cases, the rest will fall in line. Another that chair on the porch. It's a billboard for dysfunction. I don't want kids like that setting the tone for our block. Elena sat frozen. We turned the recordings over to the district attorney. The courtroom was packed when Karen's fraud and harassment trial began. Elena testified first. She described Max's diagnosis, her years of designing the therapy chair, the hours Max spent safely rocking in it, the sound it made, the comfort it brought, the way Karen smashed it, the trauma it caused. The room was silent. Several jurors wiped away tears. Karen's lawyer tried to twist it, claiming it was an unsightly device that violated reasonable aesthetic standards. But the prosecution shut that down with expert testimony from pediatric neurologists, ADA compliance officers, and a surprise witness, the designer who helped Elena prototype the chair. Then came the audio. The courtroom gasped as Karen's own voice played over the speakers. Her words were venomous, cold, calculated. Even her attorney's shoulders slumped. But the final blow came when Cynthia herself took the stand. She described how Karen collected cash-only fines, how she threatened families with fake lawsuits, how she trained other committee enforcers to issue unauthorized penalties. She even showed Karen's personal ledger where she tracked which families were problematic and which homes she wanted pressured. The judge's face went pale. Karen didn't even wait for the jury to deliberate. She took a plea deal: multiple felony counts, fraud, harassment, destruction of medical property, and more. She was sentenced to 6 years in state prison, but the collapse didn't end there. The Civic Residential Preservation Group, LLC, was seized. Multiple co-conspirators were indicted. The IRS launched an investigation. Class action suits began forming. 3 counties vowed to pass new laws tightening regulations on unregulated housing zones. Karen's name became a national warning. And Max, he got his new therapy chair custom-built by Johns Hopkins, painted in his favorite colors, and delivered with a handwritten note from the design team. For Max, the boy who helped bring down a wall. The day Karen was taken away in handcuffs, Max asked a question I didn't expect. Will she break another kid's chair now? Elena and I looked at each other. There was no easy answer, but she knelt beside him, cupped his face, and said gently, "No, sweetheart, not ever again." Max stared at her for a long time, then nodded, quietly returned to his new chair, and began rocking slowly, softly, as if the world had, for the first time in a while, made room for his rhythm. Rosegrove changed after that, not immediately, not perfectly, but profoundly. The fake HOA signs came down, the intimidation mailers stopped, and in the place of silence, neighbors began to speak openly, awkwardly, sometimes tearfully. Bill, the quiet veteran down the street, confessed that he'd been fined twice by Karen for flying his military flag. She said it made us look like a militia, he told me, eyes wet. I took it down. I never should have. A family with twin boys on the spectrum started walking together again, now that they didn't fear being labeled disturbing the peace. A gay couple who'd lived in the cul-de-sac for 5 years without ever attending a neighborhood BBQ finally came and brought the best homemade empanadas I've ever tasted. Even Cynthia, once Karen's right hand, began volunteering with the new Rosegrove Inclusion Committee, a group formed to ensure nothing like this could ever happen again. But the healing wasn't just community-wide, it was personal. Elena returned to work at the Children's Hospital with a new sense of purpose. Her patient list grew, but so did her speaking engagements. She delivered a powerful talk at a pediatric conference titled, "The Chair That Changed a Neighborhood When Medicine Meets Justice." Max slowly gained back his confidence. His therapist said the emotional damage would take time, but that he was showing remarkable resilience. Sometimes I'd catch him talking to his chair like a friend, whispering secrets, gently patting its armrest. One afternoon, I heard him say, "They tried to break us, but Mommy made us strong again." I had to step outside and cry where he couldn't see. Then came the national invitation. A producer from The Ellen Show reached out. They wanted to feature Max, Elena, and the new therapy chair, part of a segment on families fighting back against injustice. Elena hesitated at first. She didn't want to exploit Max, but Max wanted to go. So we went. Max wore a little bow tie and held onto Elena's hand the entire time. When asked if he was scared when the chair broke, he said, "Yeah, but Mommy fixed it. She fixes everything." The crowd stood and applauded. Elena blinked fast, gripping his hand tighter. Ellen gave Max a new iPad with custom sensory apps and a donation to Elena's hospital to help fund more therapy tools like the one she built. But the real gift was something quieter: validation. National, public, undeniable. In the months that followed, new laws passed across the state. Regulations now required that all community associations register with the local clerk's office and undergo annual audits. Fake HOAs were no longer a loophole for bullies in cul-de-sacs to hide behind. More importantly, a national hotline was created for reporting fake authority harassment, modeled in part on the Rosegrove case. Karen's name showed up in a documentary, not as the villain, but as the warning, a reminder that unchecked power, no matter how petty, can destroy lives. Our front porch is peaceful now. Max's chair sits in the same spot, but now it's shaded by a new awning and surrounded by wind chimes, flowers, and a welcome mat he picked out himself. Sometimes people stop and look at it, the chair that changed everything. Some take photos, some leave notes. One card simply read, "For Max. You gave us courage to make our streets safer for our son." It would be easy to say Karen was just one bad person, but that's not true. Karen was a symptom, a loud, hateful symptom of a system that lets power accumulate in the hands of the unqualified, unregulated, and unchallenged. And when that power targets the vulnerable, disabled children, marginalized families, anyone who doesn't fit the mold, it becomes violence. We didn't just survive that violence. We fought it, together, and something beautiful bloomed in the ashes. Have you ever seen fake authority used to harm or control someone in your community? What did you do? What could we all do better? Share your story. Start a conversation. The more we speak, the fewer Karens can hide, because silence protects power and truth breaks it.